If you're using Unreal as an independent filmmaker, a previs artist, a solo game developer, or you're an amateur or an enthusiast working from home and you want to move into being professional, then using Perforce for version control and as a backup system is a really good way to expand your knowledge and streamline your workflow. I use it for my projects, and in this session I'm going to show you how to use it and what it can do, because I know that many people probably won't even have heard of it or know how it works or why it's used. And it's going to be a short series. Once I've shown you what it can do and why you should want to use it, lesson 2 will be how to set it up on a single machine using Perforce One, which is a new product. And then in lesson 3, I'm going to show you how to use it as I've got it set up here, which is using a local network system, but with Perforce set up on a different machine. And then finally in lesson 4, I'm going to show you how to take that setup and open it up to the outside world. So you can use it as I do. I use it in 2 locations. And you could also add users to the system so you can add collaborators and work together. You can use Perforce for free with up to 5 users and 20 workspaces. Let's get into it.
Hey, welcome to Real Time Workflows. I'm MX Bell. I worked on Deadpool and Wolverine, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, 1917, Hobbs and Shaw, Wheel of Time, Little Mermaid, No Time to Die, tons more. What you're going to get in the channel are my pro tips and how I use Unreal Engine to make films. So let's get started. Let's make some stuff. See you down the road.
Welcome back to Real Time Workflows. I've been thinking about doing this for a while because Perforce is super useful and I didn't know what it was for a long time. I think I had finished President Ridge, so I'd finished my film without even knowing what it was. It is a really good professional skill to have. It's going to look really good on your CV if you're applying for Unreal jobs. And if you're like me and super fucking paranoid about losing work, it really does take some of that kind of anxiety out of things. So this is Perforce. This is P4V, I should say. So that's P4, the V stands for visual. So it's the visual version of P4. P4 will run on Windows and on Mac, and it runs as a command line usually, but this is the kind of the UI front end, which is mostly how you'll interact with it. But it also has a presence in Unreal. I'm going to take you through what's on this layout here, and then we'll open Unreal and show you how it works. This is my workspace. This is the thing I'm going to interact with the most, and this is for my project, which we've called Salient, and it's my World War I horror film. And so I actually run Unreal through this. This is kind of like a portal to running Unreal. I open Unreal for this project by double-clicking on the U project here. I don't do it any other way. I do it there so that I know that that's the one that I've got open and everything's working fine. So Workspace is my local, and you see it's there. It's on my F drive, okay, and it's in Unreal Projects, and it's under this project name. That's my local version of it. Now, that's not the main version. That's my copy of it. The main version of it is stored on the depot, which is here. A depot is the repository. It's the single source of truth, and you take a copy of it to work on remotely, and then we will make our changes, and that will go into a change list, and then we will hit submit, and that will push the changes back. Let's open this up and work in Unreal. Okay, so I've opened up Unreal Engine, and we will see at the bottom down here we have revision control, and you'll see it's got a little check, which means it is connected. So if we're using Perforce, we always want to make sure that's on and it's working. And if it's disconnected, it's usually because you've lost the connection, and you can come back to P4V, and it's probably asking you for a password or telling you that it's become disconnected, and it'll be offer you the chance to work disconnected, which I don't recommend, but sometimes it's a necessity. I don't know if any of you are younger might not know what a traditional library is, right? But a library is a thing that we used to have, and possibly still do, where you can go and borrow a book, a real book, a physical book. And while you've got it, you've checked it out, and no one else can get it because you've got it, right? And then you take it back, and then someone else can use it. And that's effectively the same system. If we were to make a change to an asset, we've seen this shot previously, but let's say I'm going to change this back to night. So we'll make this change really quickly. Okay, and now I've changed that shot, and it's asking me to save it. And if I hit save, it's going to ask me to check out this shot. So by checking it out, what's going to happen is I'll check this out. So 7310 PRV04, we check that out and it saves it. And then if we come back to Perforce and we go and find that in content and cinematics and 73, we'll see down here that it says right here, look, It's got this little check on it, which means it's checked out. And if I just hit refresh, we'll see that this change is shown up here as a changed version. Let's hit submit. When we push it back in, when we submit it, that checks the file back in. So you might be asking, if I'm using this for version control, why am I using version numbers like V4 here? It's a good question you're right to ask. We use version numbers in the file names because when we show a client our work, we want them to understand that they're commenting on version 4, and then we make the changes. And then eventually they say, actually, I think we had it with version 4. So you need to be able to recreate version 4 exactly as it was when you rendered the version that they've seen.
So we have this with version numbers in the file name because otherwise the only way to tell what version it was would be by the time and date that's burnt in and matching that up in Perforce, which isn't very reliable.
Now you might be able to fish through here and figure out what date and what time, what version it was that you were working with, but it's much easier if it's just the version that's in the burn-in, the version that's mentioned on screen for that shot is the version that we're looking at here. Given that I've just said, and I've always said, that you should duplicate a shot before you make a change, we saw the error I just made, right? I opened this up and I just made a change, and I should have done, right? What I should have done is I should have duplicated that shot to a version 5 and then made the change, right? I've already saved it as well. Well, it's no problem because we're using Perforce. So what I can do is I can right click on this and I can go revision control and I can hit revert and revert selected, and that is going to revert to the version that was stored in Perforce and the depot. And you see now, I'm now back before I made that change. So that's version 4, it's back as it was, and version 5 is our one that we made the change to and versioned up. That's the correct way to do it. So let's just see what that's left us with in our change list. All we're doing here now is we're adding PRV version 5. And now it's going to ask us to make a change list description. Usually I put my initials and I'll put adding 073 010 V5. Now look, for what we do, bear in mind this is a system that often runs for people who are doing programming and things like that, and it's a way to comment and label and the thing is, like, I will make a lot of changes to quite a lot of shots sometimes, and so having a single thing to comment on, a single comment, is kind of like perfunctory for me. So I'm not going to tell you not to add logical comments, but if we go to view and submit the change lists, we will see that a lot of my not particularly descriptive titles, right? That's my bad, but it's also my responsibility because I'm the one that's running this. So I can advise that you use descriptive comments, but if you're working on your own, do what you feel you need to do, as long as it makes sense to you, especially when you're working on your own. But just understand that in a professional environment, you'll be required to add descriptions as to what it is that you've been doing every time you do a submit. So periodically, you are going to need to get latest.
Right, so here we are at my second office, my work office. You'll probably see more videos from me here in the future, but we just moved in and everything's still, there's work happening downstairs if you can hear any drilling or anything like that. Anyway, point is, here's Perforce on my work machine, and what we're going to do is go to get latest, and you can see it's downloading all the files that I've changed at home since I was last here, or if I was another user, a second user, I could connect to it and download my own copy and work on it.
Let's bring in a new asset and we'll show you what happens here. So I'm going to I've got a new scan for our project. I'm going to call this British Dugout. So I'm going to add an FBX here and I'll drag it in just exactly as normal. And so now we can see what's happening here is we've got these question marks on all this stuff. It just means that Perforce doesn't know what they are yet, and we just need to tell it what to do. So we'll go to revision control and mark for add, and then in Perforce we can refresh that, and they've shown up here and in the change list as assets that are to be marked for add, and we can hit submit and go MXB add British British dugout scans. And I submit that, and now that has gone over to the depot. If we come back into here, we see British dugout, and there are the files stored in the depot. So a redirector reference is a pointer. It's like an empty byte of information that points to an asset that's been renamed or removed. If you delete too many things and you don't clean up the references, we could end up with a trail of empty pointers pointing one to the next, and it can just become a little bit messy. We don't want it. So generally speaking, we could right click and update redirector references whenever you delete or rename anything. As an example, if we were to go and if I were to go and let's rename, I'm going to rename this to version 1A, let's say, and I'll check it out so that I can do that. It's probably going to leave a redirector. So it goes version 1, version 3, version 4, version 1A. But if I try to rename this back to version 2, it says an asset already exists at this location with this name. Ah, interesting. Now if I right click and go update redirector references, there it is, look. It's a redirector reference because I renamed that file. So I'll delete that. Then I can rename this back to version 2. You can also revert to a different version. So let's take something that's got a lot of versions. It's probably one of these has got a lot of, so version 14 on this. Look, we've got 14 versions of this. Now, if I want to revert to a version, I can go view history, file history. We can see all the versions, and let's say I want to revert this to this version here that I had, the 6th of November. So I can right click on here and go get revision, and we're going to specify revision using the number. So that's our version 8. So I could say 8, but we could also specify a change list or a date and time. So if it was change list, it was change list 131. But we use revision number, and we click on 8, and we go get revision. Okay, and now you see the little red boxes marks it on here. And in Unreal Engine, we'll be back to that version. And you see here, it also says we're on version number 8 of 14. And if I want to change that back then to the version that I actually want, to the latest version, we can go get that, and now we're back at version 14. And so that is an introduction to Perforce and the most common usages of Perforce and how I use it on a day-to-day basis. So in the next lesson, I'm going to show you how to set up Perforce on a single machine using Perforce One, which is a slightly different visual layout, and it's brand new. It's less flexible. But a really good starting point if you just want to start getting used to having some version control and bringing that into your workflow. And then in part 3, we're going to look at setting up, as I've got it here, which is a local system with Perforce server running on a Mac Mini. It doesn't have to be a Mac; it could be a Windows machine. I've just happened to have an old Mac Mini that I could use. And then in part 4, I'm going to tell you how to open that out to the world, provided they've got the right credentials and logins, and you've made it secure on the machine, so that you can log in remotely, which is what I do from a second location, but you can also do it with other users as well. So I hope that was beneficial. I hope that if you'd not heard of Perforce, and by the way, they tell me it's called Perforce. That's how you're supposed to pronounce it, Perforce, which sounds just a bit posh and pants to me. I mean, like, you don't call that a Triforce, do you? It's fucking Perforce. It sounds solid and strong. Perforce, not Perforce. Anyway, that's that. So yeah, let me know if there's any questions. What I'm going to try and do as well as a follow-up, and if you've got questions, what we'll do, I think we'll pile them up, try and answer them in a sort of maybe a 5th part of the Perforce series. So let's get going. See you on the next one.